Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Kirsty and this is Stuck in the Mud. Please remember, if you're finding my videos helpful and this is the kind of content you want to continue seeing, to like my videos, and if you're not already, why not subscribe so we can build a bigger OCD and anxiety community to better help people recover and actually be free from this disorder. So in today's video, I want to talk about a recent relapse for me of OCD, and it involves magical thinking. This is always the area that gets me, I think, especially where I am in my life now. OCD has a way of hooking you back in, and it will find the easiest way, the path of least resistance, I like to say, because it knows what you value in life. And I think the magical thinking subtype of OCD has been ever present for me since being a small child. It's always been there. And I think it's always the one that really gets its hooks in me fairly easily. And I want to talk about a little bit about something that happened recently. And this is why I like to do these videos, because I like to prove to people that it doesn't have to take over. You know, I still have OCD, but it doesn't get me in the same way it used to. It doesn't grip me in the same way. And it could easily hook me in, and I could be down that rabbit hole, you know, paying attention to it and trying to figure everything out. But this is what I want to talk about today, because I want to tell you what I did differently in this recent case. So for me, like I said, magical thinking. And I think for a lot of people, it's a big part of OCD. We think that our thoughts and actions can actually have real life consequences. And this is just OCD's way of getting your attention, trying to hook you in, trying to follow what it's saying, to try and analyze everything, ruminate over everything, and try and come to some level of certainty. But we'll never get there because, you know, OCD just keeps you hooked in. It wants to keep you there. It will always keep you just going round in circles, trying to figure everything out, and you never actually feel any better. You might have moments where you get some reassurance, but it's very short-lived. That's the way OCD works. It will never fill you with any kind of certainty. It just wants you to latch onto it, and it wants to keep you in that place of just doubt, and it's persistent doubt. It doesn't ever really go away. And with OCD, magical thinking is a big part of that. It's very much has you questioning everything. So for people suffering from OCD magical thinking, we can have a belief system that our thoughts and actions can cause or prevent harm from happening. And it's very easy to get pulled into that narrative, because as an OCD sufferer, you don't want that happening. You want to make sure everything's safe, to feel secure and comfortable, and just make sure that nothing bad is going to happen. That's what we ultimately want. And we live in an uncertain world. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. We can't predict everything that's going to happen, and that is an uneasy place for an OCD sufferer to be. It's not a good place. And I also think there's many triggers in the modern society. Obviously, we live with so much media around, and we're constantly fed with information when we carry around mobile phones, and, you know, we have all this information at our fingertips, and it's not always a helpful place to be for, especially if you suffer from OCD, because it's very, very easy to get pulled into those cycles again. And this is a place I found myself just this last week. As I've got older, I have definitely become much more spiritually aware, and that is my area where I tend to get very easily pulled into it, and it grabs my attention quite easily. And this is something that happened recently where I saw something, and it triggered me. It did trigger me, the topic of conversation around a spiritual concept. And it was easy for me to then start ruminating over it. And I could definitely feel myself getting pulled in to come to some kind of conclusion over the topic that I was triggered by. And I just felt that shift. And I was wondering, like, why is this happening? You know, why am I suddenly getting pulled into this again? You know, I've been so good around this topic for so long, but I'm probably dealing with some stressful things in life at the minute, and that's all it can take sometimes. All it can take is that you're just under more stress than usual and our defenses are down. You know, I'm not saying I'm on guard all the time. I'm certainly not doing that, and that's not how you should approach OCD. But I'm usually quite aware when I'm getting pulled in, and for a short time when this particular trigger happened, I could feel myself navigating, you know, going into reassurance seeking and trying to figure it out. Maybe I even Googled something, but then I was very quick at that point to realize what was happening. And this is where the change happens. And when we start to heal from OCD, we can stop it in its tracks much earlier. You know, once we become aware of when we're getting hooked in, we can then make a change. And it's all about changing our relationship with the thoughts. These topics are always going to be there. These triggers are always going to be there. But there's something we can do differently about that. We can recognize it. We can recognize that OCD is trying to grab our attention. It's trying to take us down that one-way road where it just is no good. It's no good. It'll just take us down a really negative path where we're just not figuring anything out. We're not getting any certainty. We actually just feel worse. We're feeling so anxious and uncertain. You know, there's just so much more doubt than there needs to be because we're following it. We're following that thought. You know, I could have, as I would in the past, I could have got involved in rituals and trying to do compulsions that may ease that sense of anxiety and uncertainty that I'm feeling. But ultimately, it's just a trap. It's the OCD trap where it wants to keep us, doubting and being uncertain and anxious where we don't deserve to be. We don't deserve to be there because OCD wants to keep you there. It wants to keep you trapped. But if we just let those thoughts be there, and I know it's difficult, just let those thoughts dwell there and without getting involved in them, as little as possible anyway. So all I did in that situation was I recognized it was OCD. I recognized that this isn't a good place for me to go. If I go down this route, I'm just going to end up with more uncertainty and possibly feeling more anxious than I was in that moment. And it's not going to lead me to anywhere good. And I recognize that. So I could let those thoughts and doubts be there. And that's not going to be easy at first. It takes a lot of practice. It's just we're building up a tolerance to that uncertainty and that uncomfortable feeling we get, you know, all that discomfort in our body that we feel when we've been triggered by something and we're not actually giving it any attention. You know, we're just letting it reside there without involvement. You know, we're not pushing it away, we're just letting it be there. And that is what I did differently in this case. And it soon just packed its bags, went away. It just dissolved on its own. And that's great because I realized that although I can't control what thoughts appear in my mind, you know, what triggers I'm going to be faced with day to day, I can do something about what I do with the actual thought or the urge to do a compulsion or ritual. You know, back in the day when I had all these magical thinking triggers, I would follow them up. I would try and figure them out, try and come to some sense of certainty, which never arrived. And it just kept me trapped. It's the OCD trap. And this is why I want to show you guys that you can approach this differently. You know, if we can have a little bit more awareness when we're getting sucked into a trigger, a thought, you know, when we feel ourselves getting pulled in, that we have a little bit more awareness to when that's happening, we can say, no, it's not happening. You know, I'm going to let that be there and not Google. I think I did Google one thing the other day. And for me, like I said, magical thinking seems to be the thing that always gets me, because as I've grown older, I've become, like I said, more spiritually minded. And although there's a lot of things that I believe in, there's so many things that I don't understand, and no one can prove it. It's you can't prove any of this stuff, and it's difficult to gain any certainty because there isn't any. There is no certainty, and life isn't like that. And I think we can all agree with that. It's a difficult topic. So it's always the danger one for me. You know, it's going to be there again, and it's going to trigger me. But that's okay if that happens. You know, we've got to have some self-compassion and kind to ourselves. We know that that's going to happen. You know, we can't go through life, you know, avoiding our triggers, because that is just sending the wrong message to OCD. You know, these triggers are going to happen. And when they do, we can just take a breath and be like, it's okay. You know, I know how to handle this. It's fine. It can be there. And that's all I did. That's all I did differently this time, because it was very easy, like I said, for me to just get wrapped up in it all again. But I did do something differently, which is something you can do too. Like I said, it's not going to be easy at first. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. So I just wanted to put this out there because I want to make it noted to you guys that, you know, just because I do these videos, you know, it doesn't mean I don't get triggered anymore. You know, these things still happen. You know, these thoughts still enter my head. I don't necessarily do any physical compulsions anymore. That's something I did when I was much younger. But now it's definitely more rumination and getting involved in my head and trying to figure everything out and trying to come to some kind of conclusion. But that is a compulsion in itself, because there is a difference between thoughts and thinking. You know, intrusive thoughts, they happen. They happen to us. They happen to anyone. But with OCD sufferers, we tend to get ourselves involved and try and figure everything out. But thinking we can do something about, we can. And I know it's not easy, and it's taken me a lot of practice, a lot of patience to get to where I am now. But I do realise and give myself credit for the fact that I recognise that I'm going down an unhelpful path. And that is the real difference now. But yeah, lots of self-compassion, because this isn't easy. It's not easy at all, but you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And I want you guys to realise that. And I hope these videos are showing that and proving that you can do it too. And you'll get there. It may take some time, but it's worth it. You'll get there. So thanks for watching today. Please let me know in the comments if you found this video helpful, and I will see you next time.